Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, it should be a pretty quick one. We'll be looking at Walking Distance by Lizzy Stewart. Lizzy Stewart is someone who I've read at least one other book. I think two other books of hers. Allison, off the top of my head, and I think there's one about like being in her 30s. I think I don't know. An artist whose art I really like and who I know stories have really resonated with me. Somebody that I had the mental impression that she's often working in autobiography or very close to it, which is a thing I tend to be like skeptical about, but someone who I think did it really well and whose writing I really enjoyed. So I was really looking forward to this book. Unfortunately, this book is everything that I dislike about autobiography, and so I'll go through and show why. This is a personal preference thing. I'm sure there are plenty of people who enjoy this type of work and would enjoy this, especially because Lizzy Stewart, as you can see just from like the openings, like inside front cover and title page here, is a really great artist and produces some really beautiful imagery. So obviously the majority of the images in this book are things that are recreated from photographs or from memory or whatever of walks that she's taken. And just really like this like lyrical brushwork here as well, very calligraphic idea of wandering. The book opens with this bit of text here about like loving shots of women walking through cities in films, and she lists a number of the shots, and these are obviously recreations of screenshots. And that sets up the theme for the rest of the book, which is that Lizzy Stewart is like walking and contemplating life. She's contemplating growing older, all of these types of things. So at first it's like kind of engaging in that way. I really liked the format where it's a different way of combining text and images, because it is more like poetic, kind of thoughtful journaling like prose, which is an interesting way to present it here, and then having these images just scattered in. So there still is a comics like relationship of word and image, but it takes on a bit of a like more of a magazine format or something. It's different. It's an experiment with different ways to approach the medium. So I really like that. And then the ink wash drawings themselves are quite beautiful. Some of the dialogue here is interesting as well. Sometimes I take a step that splits me in two, into the woman who is walking and another woman who steps back to watch. I wonder what I look like. Do I look like an adult with an adult life? And I think, we all have that kind of imposter syndrome thing. So there's some moments like that where there are some, like, some things in life that are probably pretty obvious, but when you put them in the right language, it is impactful, emotionally impactful. I don't think it's the deepest thing. It's not like everything is illuminated. I can think of, not off the top of my head what they said, but I know there was 6 or 7 just sentences in there that I picked out as like crushingly deep. This is like, it says some things in some nice words, but I don't think it has that crushing depth to it that maybe a book like this kind of needs. There are some moments where we go into color, which is cool. It just switches the vibe up, but like the reason for that isn't super clear. My favorite pages are the ones where it is very much more like Jiro Taniguchi's Walking Man, where it is just focusing on the walking, the quiet, like removed place that you can get into when you're out in the world alone, in liminal spaces, airports, things like that, when you're introspective in your own head. So I really love the way that the art captures that. But by the end of the book, I was starting to have some problem with the conclusions that Lizzy Stewart is coming to in her own introspection. It's the problem of all introspective autobiography, is it eventually just starts navel gazing. And again, with some really great images here, she writes, ultimately, what is the point of all this navel gazing? Where do I end up? In an impossible, uncomfortable, and largely unflattering position. I can't spend all my time here. My body will ache and buckle. I must look outwards. It's no use drawing my own face over and over and hoping to find some truth in it. I don't want to be the thing obscuring my view of the world. So I don't know, maybe she was hoping to find something else, and that's just the honest conclusion she came to after all of this time. But I feel like that's the inevitable result of anything like this, is the artist eventually just spends so long looking inside that they get depressed and they realize that they need to get out of there. I mean, I guess it's obvious Lizzy Stewart's getting out of her house and walking, but like they need to go live a life other than being a fucking cartoonist complaining about not having anything to say anymore and being navel gazing. So I have a real, I don't like it, and that's pretty much the like in terms of writing. That's pretty much where the book gets left is that kind of like that same general thought is expressed at the end, and then we get an addendum about the movies, a couple like little notes that need to be made. So for a project that ends with like, I guess I shouldn't have wasted my time on this. No matter how beautiful the imagery is, it kind of feels as a reader like, well, then why did you sell it to me? Like, why did I spend £10 on a book that you yourself admit was kind of like pointless navel gazing? And that happens a lot in these type of books, and that's one of the reasons I don't like them. So that's like my ultimate takeaway from this book is it's a beautiful book and it's a really interesting format. I'm gonna keep it just because I love the compositions and stuff, but it seems like a useless exercise that the artist acknowledges was useless, and I don't know if I can support that in terms of telling people to spend their money on it. But if you do like these introspective, contemplative type of books, this is a really beautiful one. I also had to note at the end here, this is another one of those things that just tends to go with these kind of mewling, introspective, whining books, is this like the problems of society. And so a film I loved was Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters, a prime example of women in coats as a category, basically, but also a film I can't revisit because it would force me to make a decision on how I feel about art made by monsters or whether it deserves professional oblivion alongside its maker. Instead, I will simply have to remember Barbara Hershey walking through Manhattan in her blue duffel coat. I do like that multiple times throughout the book, Lizzy Stewart does have this little battle with herself between like cancel culture, like the things that it's trying to attack, her desire to, as with most reasonable people, I think, the desire to want to align with where they're trying to get the world to, you know, that women aren't taken advantage of and all these things I think we all agree on. And she kind of says, but like some of the ways we're trying to get there, I'm not so sure I'm comfortable with them. So there's a lot of this acknowledgement about being in the middle on these arguments, and I appreciated that throughout the book. And this is another one where she's like struggling with her desire to revisit something, but here she's more firm on like, but I can't. And that just makes me sad to read. It's like, you know what, like, yeah, the dude's obviously a creep. I tried to watch a bunch of Woody Allen movies. I tried to go chronologically sometime in the last year because a lot of people that I respect him as a writer and a dramatist, and I didn't like it. I didn't like any of his movies that I've watched. I tried a bunch of different runs from different periods, dramatic, comedy. Didn't like him. And I found him to be a creep in all of them. Like, I would have felt that if I didn't know anything about his story. But if I found one of his movies that, like, super impacted me, I wouldn't say I can't watch it just because I found out something about him. So it bums me out. Like, especially she's, like, talking about this thing that it sounds like she wants to revisit. And it's a bummer to me that people would hold themselves back on it. Like, hey, no one's in your room watching. Well, I guess now, yeah, on Netflix. Maybe that's it. We live in a panopticon, so everyone's worried. But just go watch the movie if you want to watch it. Who gives a shit if Woody Allen's a fucking creep? If a artwork impacted you and you need to revisit it, revisit it. This book I won't be revisiting. It didn't impact me. I will be flipping through it just because I think it's got some beautiful images in it, but this is one of those ones where I want to put out like an honest review of what it is. I don't want to dump all over it. I don't think it's a bad book. It's just, this isn't for me. And I've promoted this artist before. So people who are interested in this book, this is what it is. And you can make a decision for yourself if this is the type of thing that you're into. For me, no, it's definitely beautiful though. House on Fire by Matt Battaglia is a just gorgeous book where Matt's kind of making an emotional response to the years of COVID and wrapping that into a sci-fi dystopian future that really the sci-fi dystopian's backgrounded, and you're focused on the emotional journey of two characters in a really beautiful way. And then that's enhanced by Matt's like really awesome, loose, kind of Paul Popish dry brush work. And then Sean and Matt have worked to get this second kind of orange spot color in there that's going to look really, really beautiful, and has allowed Matt to use his dry brush technique to add tone to the thing too. So with Sean's production technique, this is going to be a gorgeous book with a lot of heart.